Okay, good evening. Welcome to tonight's Wednesday, August 19, 2020 Design Review Commission meeting. Could we have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Commissioner Krelling.
Here.
Commissioner Gorney.
Here.
Commissioner Valia.
I was there. I haven't seen myself anymore.
You're here. Vice Chair Case.
Here.
And Chair Killian.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay. This meeting will be conducted pursuant to the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order, which suspends certain requirements of the Ralph M. Brown Act. And for the public, if you'd like to participate, the webinar ID is 981-7571-5238. And the login password is 677431. And if you'd like to join by phone, the phone number is 1-669-900-6833. So tonight on the consent calendar, we have no items, but well, it's a public hearing for Ken, if we want to push it to that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if we could move the first item, Hilton Garden, into consent calendar, if that's okay with the rest of the commissioners.
Yes.
And you can nod your head or raise your hand. We can put that on consent and do that if you'd like.
Okay, is the rest of the commissioners okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, I haven't heard from Charles and Casey.
Yes.
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes.
Okay, do we have to allow the public in case anybody wants to comment on?
Done.
No, we should ask if anyone from the public would like to pull that off consent calendar and discuss it.
So there's a 15-second delay for the public, so we'll give you 15 seconds if anybody in the public would like to weigh in on this. And the project is the Hilton Garden Inn. They've been approved previously and they're going for a 1-year extension.
We'll wait a few seconds to see if anyone wants to chime in.
Well, while they're doing that, I can give you a small update. Their site development permit has been is ready to issue upon their fees and bonds being taken care of. This is Chip Griffin, Senior Planner with the Walnut Creek Planning Division.
All right, Ken, was there anybody from the public on this one?
Nothing, Christine? Yeah, no one from the public, so we can go ahead.
Okay, so the consent calendar, this is up for a 1-year extension. Do we need a roll call then, or?
Yeah, we need a second or a motion and a second and then a roll call.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call.
All right. Commissioner Gorney.
Yes.
Commissioner Krelling.
Yes.
Commissioner Valia.
Yes.
Vice Chair Case.
Yes.
Did I get everyone? I think we got everyone. Motion carries.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 3, which is public communications. This portion of the meeting is reserved for comments for items that are not on tonight's agenda. If anybody in the public would like to raise a concern, again, they can log in or join us by phone.
And we're not seeing any takers, Mr. Chair.
Okay, let's move on then to the public hearings. 4A was the Hilton Garden that we previously approved, so we will now move to 4B, which is 1524 townhomes. Application number Y13-083. And if we could have a staff report, please.
Ms. Ellen Carriott, staff planner. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Good evening, members of the Design Review Commission. My name is Alan Carrion, Associate Planner. The application before you is application number Y13083, 1524 townhomes. And this is for reapproval of an expired design review entitlement. It was originally approved in 2016 by the DRC. The entitlement expired in 2017, and the applicant is requesting reapproval of the design entitlement. During the interim period, the applicant has maintained a valid tentative map, which the Planning Commission took action on. But due to intense work on that, the improvement plans, there was some oversight, and the design review entitlement expired. The project is 6 units in 2 buildings. Project includes required parking, landscaping, common area courtyard, as well as private open space areas for each unit. And the project also includes frontage improvements along Oakland Boulevard and Almond Avenue. For a little background on the project, in 2015, the City Council reviewed the project, and it had gone through Design Review Commission and Planning Commission. The applicant was granted a general plan amendment to reduce the density. The minimum density was 9 units with a height limit of 50 feet. After review of the concept by the DRC and Planning Commission, the applicant and the commission felt that what was proposed wasn't appropriate, and thus they went back basically to the drawing board with a smaller project, which the DRC, Planning Commission, and City Council endorsed. Part of that 2015 City Council action was the rezoning. It went from M1 to a planned development. The City Council reviewed the architectural plans and proposed development plan, and approved that through a PD zoning. The project also had an environmental view associated with it, and a mitigated negative declaration was adopted by the City Council. City Council also approved tree removal permit and tree drip line encroachment permits. Again, 2016, the Design Review Commission approved the project, and in 2017 was granted the first approval of a tentative map for condominiums for the property, for the project. Now, since that Design Review Commission approval in 2016, the Design Review Commission adopted 2018 Objective Design Standards as a supplement to the Walnut Creek Design Review Guidelines. And in 2019, the City Council adopted the West Downtown Specific Plan. The specific plan includes 5 districts on 172 acres. This project is on the Oakland Boulevard corridor. That specific plan establishes goals, policies, objectives, and the vision for land uses and the community design on that 172 acres. In implementing the West Down Specific Plan, the City Council adopted Ordinance 2194 and rezoned much of West Downtown to allow for example, mixed-use development in the mixed-use downtown area. But this project, as a planned development, remained a planned development. The site is located here at the corner of Almond Avenue and Oakland Boulevard, about 12,200 square feet. As we can see, the property abuts D3 or duplex zone properties, along with multifamily along Oakland Boulevard. Across to the north is single-family development known as Almond Station. And across the way, what was zoned office is now mixed-use downtown. Take a look at an aerial. This is the property as of 2020. The applicant has demolished the units that were on site. There were two of them, 1524 and 1526. As indicated in my staff report, this property has a PG&E line going over it, and the proposed building 1 on the north side of the site is placed at the outer extent of what's called the drop clear zone or drop zone from that power line. Some photos of the site. This is when the units were still existing. We have here, and this pole is basically on the along the south property line. View south on Oakland Boulevard, property would be here. This corner demarcates the northeast corner of the property. As you can see by the image here, the Oakland Boulevard slopes down into the site, and basically there's about a 8 to 10 foot difference between this corner at the northwest to the southeast corner beyond. And this illustrates the existing sidewalk on the site now, and the power pole basically in a parking stall. This is the adjoining property to the south, multifamily apartments. And this is the duplex zone property immediately east of the project site. This was the site plan approved by the Design Review Commission. You can see here building 1 along the north. This is building 2, common motor court here to access to the garages for each unit, and 1 open parking stall. On the north side of building 1, I have a common area, open space, barbecue, etc. Now access to each of the units for building 1 would go here, and this is the front door. For building 2, entrance was here, unit 2, and then unit 3 and building 1, the entrance was here at the southeast corner. If we look at building 2, this unit, the west unit, the center unit, both access through this pedestrian path. So the resident of the middle unit would go through this patio area in order to access their front door. The eastern unit the front door would be about this location. This is the currently proposed plan seeking reapproval. You can see the building 1, building 2. The common courtyard has been expanded in area, and the paths have been adjusted and enhanced to be more interesting than what was previously proposed. The entrance to this unit, same location, same with this unit here. Now, part of the West Down specific plan requires that development along Oakland Boulevard face the street. The architect has adjusted the elevation and the plan for this unit in building 2 to where the front door is now accessed from and visible from Oakland Boulevard. The center unit would still be accessed through this private patio. And here's that entrance to the eastern unit of building 2. You can also see the improvements along Oakland Boulevard and Almond Avenue. Those are the entrances and that path. These are the perspectives which were approved in 2016, and this is what's currently proposed. As you can see here in building 2, there's the front door, and electrical room is still in that location. But it does face Oakland Boulevard. Now with building 1, the architect has gone ahead and moved the electrical closet here from this elevation to the opposite, the eastern elevation. Part of staff's recommendation this evening is for the architect to provide perhaps some architectural detail on this elevation of building 1. In 2016, what was approved as the perimeter fence was a CMU wall system. With this current proposal, the applicant and the architect worked together to put together a wood fence system, thereby breaking up the mass of the concrete block wall. So this wood section here would be horizontal slats with some openings. So that this would range from 3 to, I believe, about 4 feet. The adjoining property owner did express some concern, Mr. Steve Chalice at 1966 Dora, about this wall, and that's partially the reason they went to this system. Staff is recommending that the wood fence system be changed to a wood board-on-board system to where it's solid for privacy for both the residents of the development as well as the adjoining properties. Otherwise, the elevations remain the same. So this is the proposed, and here's that portion of wall adjoining the parking stall that could use a little bit of detail. That's building 1, relocated electrical. And building 2. Actually, the architect has gone ahead and moved also that panel from west side of building 2 to the east unit. There's the elevation of the wall system and fence system in comparison to what was originally approved. And moving on. Okay, the landscape plan. At the Oakland Boulevard frontage, we have a couple of arbutus trees to frame the driveway along with a Chinese pistache, and this is the oak that's to be preserved. Mr. Chalice at 1966 also expressed concern about the 15-gallon size trees proposed along the property line. Comment was that he was seeking for the applicant to increase the size to either a 24-inch or 36-inch. And my understanding is that the architect and owners have been in contact with Mr. Chalice, and I believe they will be reporting on the outcome of that discussion this evening. But otherwise, the fence around the courtyard, that's also proposed as horizontal slats. It's about 4 feet tall. And this fence is actually would be lower than the sidewalk elevation. So this still does provide some modicum of privacy. Staff's not opposed to the horizontal fence system along here, in that the visual permeability probably help this area. And these are some of the palms that were transplanted and shown on the aerial image earlier. And staff's recommendations for the perimeter wood fence to change to a solid board design. A low wood fence with vines to screen that parking stall as indicated in the staff report. Design treatment of west elevation of building 1. And again, in my report, discussion about bicycle racks, delegate that to staff for review and approval through the site development permit. And with that, staff's recommending move to approve the project subject to the conditions in the draft resolution. And I'm standing by for any questions or comments. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Ellen. Do we have any questions for staff?
I have a question.
Casey?
Yeah, does there need to be stormwater treatment on this site?
There does. The plan is to convey and collect to a drainage system. They're not required per se to have a basin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's one of the difficulties of this project site. The storm drain on Oakland Boulevard, I believe, is like 300 or 400 feet down the street. And in order to get flow from the southeast corner to Oakland Boulevard, the DI, I think, is like 13 or 14 feet deep.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other questions of staff? Ellen, I have a question for you. In your analysis, you indicated that there is consideration of the front setbacks, that there is a 6-foot sidewalk and a landscape strip between the curb and the sidewalk. I saw that on the original plan, and it seems to have disappeared on the new plan.
That's correct. The plans were revised through the engineering review, and what is proposed is what is being accepted by engineering.
Okay, so it wasn't, the way I read it, though, I may have understood, is that that was a condition for allowing them different setbacks and also doing a different corner treatment on Oakland Boulevard. But that's not the case. That's open to whatever we think is appropriate.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Okay, I don't see any other hands. So with that,
I do have a question.
Sure,
Alex,
Carlos.
so can you summarize, I mean, the changes between this and the 2015 project are basically the fence, and then they're moving a door, electrical room? I mean,
So
yes.
in
I mean,
summary, the changes to the plan, because of the west downtown, to orient the units towards Oakland Boulevard. So building 2 has been revised to do that. With building 1, I believe there's some grade issues, and that ADA loading zone, which can't have a step or anything, that has to be kept clear. The other change includes the perimeter fence at the property line, and also the fence design around the courtyard. But otherwise, our building architecture remains the same as 2016.
So you just brought ADA. Is there any ADA requirement for any of those units?
There's 1 stall required.
And what about the units themselves?
As ownership units, no.
Access to the front door, I believe, is all that's required.
Thank you.
Alan, I didn't see any civil plans. Were there any civil plans that would give us grade elevations proposed?
The civil plans are with the tentative map, and unfortunately, no, I did not provide them.
Okay,
I believe there might be civil plans in the other attachment of the 2015 that has a set in it.
Look through them. I didn't. Could you give a brief then? What you said, there's about a 13-foot drop of existing grade. What can you just give us a brief summary of what the final grade, proposed grade, is going to be across there?
In the sections provided by the architect, the plans illustrate the existing grade and the proposed grade. So on building 1, it's generally a balanced cut fill, and I don't recall on building 2, but it's I believe
I
it's
guess
also
what I'm
balanced.
looking for from front to back, is it fairly level to where they're building up 12 feet, or is it still sloping down 6 feet?
It's still sloping down.
Okay.
That's been one of the difficulties of draining this site because of the existing grade difference.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions of Alan? Okay. Hearing none.
Mr. Chair, I'll just mention that the city's engineering representative is also on with us this evening if there are other questions of the engineer.
Okay, great. Okay, so now if the applicant's here, if they'd like to make a presentation, if they could give their name so we know who we're talking to, and then feel free to give us your input.
Good evening. My name is Ed Novak. I'm the architect on the project. I will be making a very brief presentation, and I will also have Annika Carpenter here to talk a little bit about the landscape plans, and especially the corner, the southeast corner adjacent to Steve Chalice's property. Briefly, we stand behind our original design. We did modify certain aspects of the plan and elevations to coincide with the adopted downtown specific plan and other development aspects that occurred in that interim. We agree with all of Alan's conditions of approval, with the exception of the bike racks. He's suggesting that we should have a total of 7 on-site bike racks, 6 behind a fence and 1 out in a public area. We have, in our revised plan here, shown 1 loop which would hold 2 bikes behind our little courtyard. And then we have provided a note on our floor plans that each garage will be provided with hardware to store at least 1 bicycle in each of those garages. We feel that the secured bike condition in your development standards should apply to an attached garage location for these townhouse units. I know if I was a owner of one of these, I would store my bicycle in that garage as opposed to a hoop out in the courtyard with a bike lock. So again, we are open to anything that the commission feels is fit regarding that, but we feel that we've complied with the intent of that particular ordinance or downtown standard. Also, Alan had shared with us Chief Steve Chalice's concern about privacy screening between our property and his. Our proposed landscape plan had purple plum tree in the corner with 2, I believe, crepe myrtles kind of between our building and the site wall. All of them to be planted at 15-gallon size at installation. We reached out to Steve and had a discussion over 2 options where we could provide him either larger trees on his property right out the gate, or increase the tree number and size a little bit on our property. His preference was to go with the second option, where increasing tree size and number on our property would be acceptable. So Annika will talk to you more about that, but we're going to offer 1 36-inch box in the corner and 4 24-inch box trees between our building and his property line moving to the west. So I had a conversation with him this afternoon. He seems that although it's not perfect, is something of a good gesture and moving in the right direction for providing privacy. The other thing that we're going to do is there is a second floor window that would take several years, probably for a tree to grow tall enough to screen. This particular window is a small window into a bathroom that we will put obscure glass into it and make it a cased window, hinged, so that when it is in the open position, would also block the view from inside the unit towards Steve's property. With that, I would like Annika to come in and talk more specifically about the trees and how we're mitigating that.
Hi, my name is Annika Carpenter. I'm the landscape architect on the project. I do have the exhibit that I don't know if you want me to share screen and show you what the exhibit is that we showed to the neighbor, and which the one that he preferred. And then I can walk you through the design and why we made this selection and the change.
Sure, if there's a graphic, I think that's probably easier to understand.
Okay, so can we see that, everybody?
Yes.
Okay, so we are showing his building. He has a small building on his property. This is the one that he was concerned about. So on the corner, so we're very tight on space. We only have about 6.5 feet between the building and the retaining wall. So I had to come up with some trees that would be very forgiving, that could grow close to the architecture and not really interfere with the architecture, but get tall enough and be evergreen so that it would help mitigate the bulk and mass of the building from his house that he has in this yard. So I came up with putting 3 24-inch box size Laurus nobilis trees, which at the time, and I have an image of the time of planting, what a 24-inch right now, what they look like at the nursery. So they're 10 to 11 feet tall with a 2 to 3 foot wide head on them. And then there's a picture of kind of a growth of more of a mature tree, so he could see that. So we're also in the corner, instead of the purpley plum. So another thing, he wanted evergreen. We had all deciduous, and the crepe myrtles that we had were the very small Acoma crepe myrtles. And so they weren't going to get very tall no matter what. So we just wanted to try to get some trees in here to this is a 2-story building. We wanted to kind of help mitigate that. So on the corner, we upsized and we can do a 36-inch box, and we decided to do a Brisbane box tree. So we get the evergreen and we get a very quick growth rate, and it will just help mitigate the building against his property. And this was the one that he liked, this option better. So as far as right now, this is what we would like to proceed with, unless he has any further comments or suggestions that we could work out with him. So.
Okay, is that your presentation, or do you have other people or other items?
That is our presentation at this time. We do have other people here available for answering questions if necessary.
Okay, great. All right, well, let's bring it, open it up for questions from the commission at this point. Does anybody have questions of the applicant?
I have one. I was wondering on that sign, the 1526 sign on building 1, It doesn't show up in the 3D drawings, but it's in the renderings. Is it required to be a certain height off the ground by rule, or could you drop it down so it was in the stucco wall instead of in the wood wall? As part of that kind of animating that wall down below.
No, to my knowledge, it doesn't have to be that high. Originally, there were meter closet doors on that wall, so the sign was placed at the lower corner of the upper floor in that original design. So I am totally acceptable working with staff on resolving, design articulation along that wall. And if that's something that staff would consider, I'd be happy to move the number down.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
I have a question. What's the function of the decomposed granite area close to the Almond Avenue? It has like a little loopy and a plant in the middle.
I think we had a bench there at one point. I'm not sure if there's a bench still there. I have to look at the drawing, but right adjacent to that too is where we put the bike loops in a DG area.
Okay.
But I think we have some boulders there that you can sit upon. That's what we have in that DG area.
Okay, and those maybe just aren't shown on the plan?
The boulders, I think the boulders are on the plan.
On the edges. Okay. Okay. That's it for me.
Carlos, Charles, or Casey, did you have other questions?
Nope, that's all.
No questions.
All right, I have a couple. Starting with the fence along the back. Is the neighbor, what is the bottom portion? Is that just raw CMU block?
No,
Ryan, go ahead.
I think it's, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's poured in place with board form on it.
Okay. And then your fencing on top of that, given it's kind of a privacy fence, why did you have the opening at the courtyard where the cars and the headlights and everything are coming down? I kind of mystified. Why is that open as opposed to?
Yeah, that was a carryover from the original. I wasn't involved in the first design review approval. And for some reason there was, in fact, I had it solid first and then I had to open it up and I was requested to make it transparent. I think I'm not sure what the intent of it was. I'm not sure if Ed may have better information on that.
Yeah, I can enlighten you on that. In the original landscape plan, those open areas were what was defined as vegetative fences. So originally it was going to be a wire deal that planted vine work and stuff would be at their base, and they would grow in to fill in and create the opacity. In this new version, or the newer version, the idea was to use that open slat to allow vines to go in and out of the woodwork. However, we have no objection with going to the board on board.
That was my next question. Given the architecture and the horizontal lines, do you have any other creative, rather than just accepting a board on board? Do you have any other ideas for some sort of a privacy fence that would kind of enhance the architecture rather than just saying okay to a vertical fence?
I would be open to looking at these opaque areas and leaving it as horizontal, and the open areas that are in question, go with the board on board. And maybe we can work out the pattern a little bit more so that there's a consistency or a repetition to it. Kind of alternating that.
Okay. Staying with the fence on the detail on L2, I'm just kind of curious. two things kind of struck me as, maybe we could look at. Number one, if you do have the horizontal cedar wood that's staying, that seems to be kind of a sophisticated fence, but yet you're just using pressure treated post. And it seems, that would seem a little bit awkward with the, unrefined posts. So any consideration for changing those posts to make it equal to the boarding. And then along with that, you have 8 feet. And I don't know with your 1-bys, spanning 8 feet, I suspect after 6 months in the sun and the rain, those things are not going to be as crisp and straight as your drawings indicate. So is there a better spacing on those posts that we could come up with to make sure, your vision stays that way?
Sure, we're amenable to that. We can update the plan, update the details to change the post material and the spacing.
Okay, let me go into the landscape now. I too had a concern about, just like Casey did, is what purpose that little round DG area. It just seemed too small to do anything. And my overall question on this is, I know these small space gardens are very tricky, and they're, tougher than if you had a half acre to design. And I guess my question is, starting with the barbecue area, again, is that a requirement or something from the previous plan, or is this, again, just your vision without any conditions of approval directing you to do that?
We were trying to keep to the original design as closely as possible, but we did eliminate the water feature because of the, maintenance issues that go along with water features.
I'll try to put this in a question. If I'm over in Plan 4 or Plan 2B and I want to come over and have a barbecue, I got to lug everything over there and cook it. And then you're forcing me, there's no table there to eat. So I'm just wondering, how much is it really going to be used if you can't go and cook your hamburger there and then sit down and enjoy it, as opposed to turning around, lugging it back? I don't know, that setup, if it's really practical.
Okay, we can look into like what either providing the furnishings or creating a, eliminating that as a feature item.
Okay. Are the palm trees, have they already been relocated? So where they're at is where
Yes.
they'll remain?
Yes.
Okay, my concern is, I know, again, all my questions relate to this, such a tight space and everything. Those trunks are about 4 feet in diameter. And again, if you were to draw them to scale, again, I think you're creating some problems with your fencing and your patio, and you're probably going to have to eliminate some of the landscaping. So again, it further increases my concern about this tight space. And, on a colored plan, it looks nice, and I'm just not sure it's going to work. And furthering that, as a question, is the oak tree. This oak tree might have been this size back in 2016, but going by it today, that oak tree is at least 50% larger. So again, my question is, will it still work with your pathway and your stone wall, keeping it out of the drip line? Has anyone looked at that recently?
Well, we weren't keeping the stone wall is not defining the drip line. The stone wall is defining like a 9-foot setback from the trunk.
Okay, so it's not going to be dictated by the arborists on root zones or anything?
Well, no, I mean, we weren't keeping that
I
that,
mean, my real question is, I just want to make sure it's successful. And looking at the tree and how large it is compared to your plan, again, I think there's going to be changes. And, you know, I just question whether that pathway and the elevations, again, we don't have grades. And I just suspect that stone wall may grow both in size and height. And again, it might be just too tight for that pathway going to the doors. So that's what I'm fishing for at this point.
okay, well, the stone wall is really not, it doesn't really create much of a retaining condition. It's actually more of a curb, it's about 6 inches high.
That shows about 2 feet on your elevation, and I suspect because you're probably doing fill there in Plan 3, so you're probably trying to keep the grade of the oak tree as it's going down. So again, you know, that gets too close to the walkway, and all of a sudden you have a 30-inch drop. You know, do you need a railing there?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and we've discussed that. We've sat down with the city and city staff, and we were talking about whether or not they needed a railing there because, yeah, the sidewalk does get extremely close to the tree, and there is about a 24-inch drop from the sidewalk down, but the grade pretty much around the balance of it is very little. So it is a small well, but mostly the only change in elevation is mostly at the paved area.
okay, let me go over to your irrigation plan on L4. Is that all going to be a HOA controlled, or will each
It's all
person?
it's all HOA.
Okay, so how does it work? If you look on Plan 2B and Plan 4, you have fences there that give each of those units their own private space and going through. And I'm wondering, your irrigation lines cross through all 3 of those units. So I don't know how that's going to be maintained. Are you going to have, maintenance workers going through these private fences in people's backyards to maintain the irrigation?
Yes, that's how it would have to work.
Does it have to work that way?
No, but that's how it's been designed to work.
Okay. All right, let me stop there. I don't have any other questions at this point. Are there any other questions from the other commissioners before we open it up to the public?
It's a question for Alan. Alan, about the bike racks, bringing back the topic. I mean, can you expand on why we wanted, or why the bike racks should be outside?
Did we lose Alan?
He's on mute.
Well, while we're waiting for Alan, I did have a couple others. Trash cans, are those individual, and are there going to be AC condensers in each of these units? And if so, where are they going to be located?
Trash cans will, for the most part, stored in garages. I think there's one unit, the 1A unit, I believe, in building 1 has their cans in the side yard, their private yard. As far as the AC condensers, they're all rooftop mounted. You can, in the view along eastern boundary, you kind of see a screen element that would indicate that there's one of the units are going to be located behind that.
Okay, so the cans would be just rolled out in front of the garage, or would they be rolled out to Oakland Boulevard for trash pickup day?
They most likely, and again, this would be worked out with the collection agency, but they'll probably be rolled up to Oakland Boulevard and placed curbside.
So we'll have a potential 18 cans out there?
Well, I doubt you'd have a lot of green waste out of these units. Some may choose green waste. Others, since the majority of the landscape will be handled by the HOA and a landscape firm, green waste mostly will go out that way. But yeah, you'd probably have recycling and trash out there for 6 units.
This is Charles. Is that a red curb, no parking along the property line there in Oakland?
I believe there might be one available space down by the oak tree, but once the curb line kind of converges onto the center line of the street, it will become no parking all the way up to the corner.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Padilla?
Alan,
Yeah,
great to have you back.
about the bike question, that is part of the objective design standards, which are guidelines in this particular case. The requirement is for a bike rack for each one of the units in a quote unquote secured location.
Okay, that
Mr. Chair, that's a design guideline. So it's not a hard and fast development regulation. Is that your understanding, Alan?
That's correct in this particular case.
okay. All right. Any other questions?
Charles, what in particular was the design guideline you were discussing just now?
For this project, the objective design standards serve as guidelines for the project. One of the guidelines is for a secured lockable bike.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Okay, at this point, we're going to open it up to the public. If anybody in the public would like to make a comment on this, again, the ID is 981-7571-5238. The login is 677-431. And if you're calling by phone, it's 1-669-900-6833.
All right, Mr. Chair, we'll wait a few seconds for the delay on that. And then maybe while we're waiting, Alan or Ryan, can you confirm that there's no parking along Oakland Boulevard up to the corner there?
Mr. Novak is correct. The available parking stall would be near that oak tree or the property line. The remainder of the frontage for this project along Oakland would be red curbed.
Okay. Nobody? Okay, so we're not getting anybody wanting to chime in from the public on this?
Okay, seeing none, I'm going to close the public hearing and we'll bring it back to the commission for comments unless the applicant, if there's anything we jog your memory that you want to give us a little last thought before we go to comments.
I think we're good. Thank you.
Okay. All right, well, let's go to comments then. Does anybody like to start?
Sure, this is Charles. Since I didn't have questions, I'll just share my comments. So, overall, I think this is a great development. Across the street from Almond was a very odd shaped lot, similar to what you're dealing with. And I'm very familiar with the development. I forget how many years ago it went in with all those. They're detached single family homes, but they're very close and tight together. Been through them when they were open. And I think you've done, because I think you even have a little bit less land. I think you've done a pretty remarkable job coming up with something that is pretty attractive and pretty functional for that odd parcel of land. I'm glad to hear that there'll be no parking in front. And the reason I say that, when I used to commute to Oakland some time ago, I used to actually come up Trinity and go down Oakland to get to Mount Diablo. And one thing I always noticed, and I'm looking at an aerial view on Google Maps right now, was that other development across of Almond, which were very nice looking homes. A lot of people go up on Oakland and park there for BART. And I saw a number of, I'll just say, unsightly vehicles ending up in trucks, et cetera, in front of these people's homes. And they were not inexpensive homes. I surmise these condos will not be inexpensive condos either, having looked at the floor plans and the layouts. So I'm really glad. I think it'll be nice for the people living here to not have to have sort of a general public parking lot right in front. So I really hope it stays that way. But other than that, I think you did a really nice job with that piece of land, coming up with something really, I think, very nice.
All right, great. Next.
I'll go. We beat this project up from 2013 to 2016, I think. And I think that Mr. Novak's been through a lot of changes on this project with the various commissioners we've had along the way. It was a difficult site from day one, and having the requirement to put that many units on the site was something, with all those hills and with the Almond Chewy neighborhood, was definitely a challenge. And I think from the beginning, they did a really good job doing it. I think the changes we're looking at are fairly minor. I like the idea of moving the front door onto the main street. I do think that we worked a lot on privacy. It used to be, I think, a solid masonry wall all the way up to the top. And we were working with the applicant to try to get some kind of breaks in it so that when they came up with the metal with the landscape, we thought that was good. But I think to continue to work with the neighbors. But I agree, if the headlights are going into the house next door, it's probably better to have something solid. But I like the fact that the fence changes. It's a different kind of fence as opposed to the same fence all the way across. So I'd like him to keep working on that. I think pulling the sign down will be important on that 1526. It just looks awkward in the woods. I think bringing it down will start to give some other definition to that wall below. I'm okay with the bikes being inside garages. I think that the rule was written for places that have open parking garages, and they wanted to have places people could lock their bikes. But obviously, if it's a garage, it's unnecessary. And I think that, Brian brought up some good points about the multi-unit projects and the irrigation and landscape. And I don't know how the city wants to deal with that, but it always seemed a little odd to have the sprinklers in your backyard, in your yard, controlled by the homeowners association. So I think it's something we need to look at in the future with the design guidelines. Also, we talked a lot about where the trash was going to go on these, and I think what they've done is fine. In a way, I'm kind of the opposite of Charles about losing the street parking, because when people wind up having guests, there's nowhere for them to park. They're going to wind up down in the Almond Chewy neighborhood, parking and walking. And I think that, unfortunately, having some guest parking on these projects helps. So I'm kind of disappointed in losing it myself, but it helps with the traffic, I guess, and the city wants big boulevards there. So I'm ready to move this forward. I think they've done a good job making the changes.
All right, Carlos?
Well, I feel the same like Joe does. I miss the idea of having parking for this project. Visitor parking, that would be a prime. I mean, that would be ideal to be able to park just across the building and visit my buddy there. Besides that, I'm new to the project. I've never seen the project before, but when I compare the 2015 version to this one, I had a very hard time. I thought it was the same project. So I have very little to say here. I mean, it's a project that I just heard from Joseph that it's gone through a lot of changes and a lot of iterations, and I don't see any major changes. I'm perfectly fine with the project.
Okay, Casey?
Okay, just a couple minor little comments. Nothing surprising since I alluded to it in some of my questions. So I'd love it if the decomposed granite area maybe had some place to sit other than boulders. It just feels a little more usable. And on a super hot day like today, maybe you're out there like reading a book, maybe you're melting. I think that I agree the bike racks being in the garage is probably where I would keep my bike too. And it does seem like you have a couple opportunities for it outside as well. So if there's, a need for an extra space. I do think that the space where the barbecue is and the conversational seating, I like that there is an outdoor environment like that, but I think maybe just reevaluate the site furnishing or the programming, because it's a little bit circuitous for Plan 3 and 2B to get there, unless they're coming out through their garage, which isn't the end of the world. But otherwise, they need to go out onto the city's sidewalk. So and I agree, it could be just as simple as adding a prep table or something, so that if you are going out there to use the barbecue, it feels convenient. Because I think it's always great to encourage people to get outside. So that's all of my comments.
Okay, I generally agree. I like the architecture. I think on the fencing, I kind of disagree on the board on board. While I agree, it should be privacy. I think, again, let's keep this going with the architecture like you tried with the horizontal fencing, and come up with something that's more privacy, but that works with the architecture rather than just throwing the board on board fence back there. Again, as I alluded to, the landscaping, we want it to work, and on plan, we think it's great and what's going to happen, but I think the reality is it's just too small. So I just wonder if that common area, in reality won't be something more that you can put a couple benches that people can actually sit in, and that's it. When you look at how tight even that conversation pit is, you're not going to have any more room than one chair out there, much less 3 chairs and a table. It's just not going to work. So I think it just has to be loosened up. So I'm not disagreeing with the plan or what you're trying to do, but I think the reality is, less is going to be more, and it'll actually be used in doing that. Couple of things, let's put the sizes on the plant legend. It was heck for me trying to figure out, sizes, and, the contractor's going to have the same thing. I was going to say all trees should be 24. Again, such a small project, we only have a couple of trees. I'd like to make that a condition, because you have some 3-story homes there, and to put a little 15-gallon tree in there, I think they deserve to have a little bit bigger trees in there. There was one other element that we never really talked about. Staff was recommending a 3-foot high screen wall next to the handicap parking. That really hadn't been discussed, and whether that goes in or some architectural features on the building. I don't know if anybody wants to weigh in on that, whether they agree with that or not.
Point of clarification, Mr. Killian.
Yes.
Those would be 2 separate issues. So one is for that wall to be detailed, and then to screen the parked vehicle in that location with that fine covered fence.
Okay.
You're saying screen it from what? From the street? I mean, it's down a hill. Like you're saying in front of the parking space, between the parking space and a landscape, to put a 3-foot wall or something?
It would be parallel to the sidewalk. It would screen from the public way.
Seems unnecessary to me.
Okay.
And landscape architects?
It could go either way. Again, you already have that horizontal fencing that's only 4 feet tall. I think if you wanted to, you could carry that not all the way through, but it could work either way. I'm 50-50 on that one.
I don't like giving places for people to hide. Just seems that open is better. Casey?
I don't have a strong opinion. I'm okay with it remaining open.
Okay. It doesn't seem like we're really overjoyed with that. So unless there's any other comments, let's see if we can cobble together a motion on this then. From what I heard, it seems like everybody's in agreement with the architecture and just some other minor comments and tweaking, and we can move this along.
Is that a motion?
All right, I'll make a motion that we approve this for, what is this, final design with the modified condition that the perimeter fence along the east and south property lines be changed to be more architectural compatible, but offer more privacy to both the residents and the neighbors. That the ID sign be lowered on the west wall to the stucco area. That all trees be upsized to 24-inch box size. And I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to force the landscape architect. I think they have my concerns and they share it just to make this project better, but I'm not going to put any of those as conditions. So I'll leave my motion there unless I'm forgetting something, Alan, that you in your, I don't have it right in front of me, your conditions. Are we missing anything?
Charles has a comment, I think.
Brian, I think you made the comment. I don't know if you want to put it as a condition or not. I think you made the comment about sort of upsizing the materials on the fences so they would last longer.
Oh, yeah, thank you. And yeah, revise the detail so that it's more structurally sustainable. You know, move the post end to 6 or 4 feet and change the post to match the cedar wood or some other material that's higher quality than pressure treated. And with that, I'm going to stop.
Brian,
yeah.
You're saying, like, we talked about some things about adding furniture at the outdoor space and also to look at the on-site circulation so that the units have better access to that without having to go into the sidewalk. Are those the things you're saying not to put in the motion, but if the landscape architect and the owners want to make some changes, we encourage it?
Yes, because I think just for the livability, what their plan is, I agree with, but I think it's just going to be too tight to where they won't use it as envisioned, and they can loosen it up a little bit. I don't really see anybody using that barbecue out there the way it is with no tables or anything. So it's just going to sit there and get rusty. So I wouldn't mind if you just eliminated it and put a bench there. They might go down there for morning coffee or something like that. But I think that's all the space is. It's just too tight to really have some community gathering down there. And that's just my opinion. Okay. So.
Yeah, I can see eliminating that piece in the middle almost where the DG is. I mean, it's kind of a big thing in the middle that doesn't get used. It almost seems that they took that out. They could really make a better space. Yeah. But you're saying just leave it to the developer.
Yeah, because again, it's not bad. It's just whether it'll be used or not. And again, I don't think it rises to a level of condition that I want them to redo the whole landscape plan. I think, you know, they had a vision. Maybe it could work. I'm just, you know, I'm not going to put it in the condition. So I'm going to leave my condition at that. And if we have a second.
I agree. I'll second that.
All right. And any discussion before a roll call? Okay, Ken, if we could have a roll call.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Chair Killian.
Yes.
Commissioner Gorney.
Yes.
Vice Chair Case.
Yes.
Commissioner Valia.
Yes.
And Commissioner Krelling.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
All right, great. Applicant, hopefully no questions. We're fairly clear. All right, maybe they've moved on.
No, I was slow in getting to my mute button, sorry. I am pretty much clear. I think Alan and I can come to an agreement with regards to the bike racks, right? Yes. As well as the low wall around the parking.
Okay. All right, great. Well, thank you very much.
Okay.
All right, with that, we move to number 5, commission considerations. Excuse me. Do we have any?
Nothing from staff. If there are any items that you wish to discuss, we can do that under number 6.
All right, let's move to number 6 then. Commission member and staff reports or announcements.
Again, our discussion today about landscaping and irrigation, I think we need to just keep those things in the back of our mind so when the objective design standards come back, we remember to bring them up again. Because we see a lot of those in these projects, and it's hard to know until we see a project in front of us how the guideline works. And this is a perfect example. If you have garages, having a bike racks enclosed doesn't really make any sense. So we just have to make sure that the guidelines reflect that when we get them to read and really look at these situations.
Right, and that'd be part of the objective standards too. We could somehow, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Ken, I have a question or an observation just driving through town, and I don't know if it's related to the virus or whatever. Specifically, this was in front of the Marriott. They had a little bioretention planter in front that's right along, I guess that's Main Street there. But it just seems that a lot of places along the city right-of-ways are being neglected and the weeds are outgrowing the landscaping. And especially along Main Street, you know, right there, it just seems, and I don't know if that's private property or not, but I'm seeing a lot more weeds and unkempt areas. Just makes the city kind of look, you know, ratty.
Yeah, I want to make sure I got the correct Marriott. Are you talking about the?
I believe it's the new one by
new
the
one.
Jaguar dealership. But again, I mean, it's right in your face as all the public is driving by there. And it's, you know, again, one of these bioswales, you know, that, you know, this is kind of an end result, I think.
Well,
Yeah, I could certainly pass that along to the staff planner. Also, the city is responsible for making sure that those are maintained and so forth. So I can pass that along to Public Works as well.
maybe you can add to that. Thanks for bringing that up, Brian. I've actually have somebody I know, and they're a resident Walnut Creek, and they posted pictures on Facebook of a similar thing happening all around Broadway Plaza with the landscaping. And I know for a while, because I did talk to code enforcement on a couple of residential, 12-foot tall lawns around where I lived. There was a while where they couldn't get out and investigate these things. So if a resident complained, they would still attempt to send letters out. But I think now they're back to being active on looking at these things. But I would imagine some of the, I don't know if any of this is happening with city property or if it's all just happening with privately owned property in the downtown area.
And Commissioner Crowling, was that in any particular area at Broadway Plaza on the outskirts on the public street sides, or was it interior or just?
I think it was on the public street side, and what I can do is tomorrow I will grab some of the photos that they posted on Facebook and I'll shoot them off to you.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a surprise. They have full-time landscape people over there.
Right.
Usually they stay on top of it, so it'd be good to let them know and look at it.
Right. Okay.
I got one other quick thing. There's a project we approved a couple years ago on San Miguel Drive at Sierra. It's kind of a Mediterranean. It's under construction right now. I was by it the other day, and they've done a few of the things on that project that I really just always dislike, which is like a little tiny double hung window with a fake grid. And all the grids are like the kind of grids that are really thin and fit between the panes of glass. And just sometimes it just doesn't have that quality level. which is why in the meetings I try to always get them to use at least simulated true divided lights. But I think it's worth a shot to go look at that project at Sierra and San Miguel and just to see the details on it and see if there's anything we could do better in the future. They also have that newer project that's up on Annalise Lane on San Miguel. And it actually has some fake grids also, but they look a lot better because of the color and the way they're integrated into the total window. So I would just recommend everybody go over there sometime and look at both of those projects, both on Sierra and Annalise.
Okay. Okay, any more announcements or issues? Seeing none, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Good
All
night.
right, thanks, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm done.